Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case, looking at the latest news and findings on the matter. Today we have an important video as we take a look at Jack Newton's response to Carter Combs' threatening text message. Now some of you will be aware of it already as I covered it on my channel from the point of view of a viewer that reached out to Carter Combs on Instagram on a public post on her profile, and she responded back with a threatening message saying she's going to beat the beep out of the person through a DM. Now it was done, in the background behind closed doors. I wonder why, but it was brought to light in recent time. Wasn't the best choice of words, of course, with it being an open active case and they're a person of interest within it, but it happened. Jack Newton has heard about it recently and he's given his thoughts. Does he agree with it? Is he sticking up for Carter or not? And the reason why this is interesting, because there is a bit of a key possible underlying tone behind how one views the other and in a way defends but shows a level of understanding. And whilst that's important, you will see it yourself in today's video when we look at the comments from Facebook, wherever they were, reposted on Reddit. Credit to the individual that did so, and I'll give you a backstory behind how this all came about and why Carter Combs responded the way she did originally. But that will come later, so you don't want to go anywhere. Make sure to stick around watching this video so you don't miss anything. But in terms of Jack, Jack back then was the boyfriend, the girlfriend was Carter Combs. They were in a relationship, such as back in 2023 with that party, the party house with Noah there present, girlfriend, boyfriend. Fast forward on to 2024, February time, I think it might have been February 4th, Jack Newton, Carter Combs get engaged, about to get married. But as time's gone on, supposedly the wedding was called off and they both split up. Now when people split up, they can still be friends, of course. It won't always work like that, but at least from online social media, they unfollowed each other. So they completely done. Was it a publicity stunt as a form of misdirection? Who knows? There's different ways of looking at it. But I'm going to try and bring everything together today. We do need to focus first on Jack's recent response, look at the latest news there, follow through with some of the comments, answer any questions people may have, and then go back full circle to the origins of it all happening. As for the backstory of this video, credit to Val, a viewer last night when I was doing a live stream on this case. If you haven't checked out my live stream video on the Noah Presgrove case last night, be sure to check it out after watching this video. You hover over the top right corner of the screen, like on this video right now, you'll find some links. Click on the eye symbol, you'll get a drop-down box of other videos, including the last night's live stream and playlist as well. If you want to catch up on any of our older videos, it'll be all there and available. When I was doing the live stream last night, a person came on in called Val, mentioned about Jack's recent behaviour and what he's had to say about it 2 to 4 days ago now, or maybe a bit longer. So it's quite fresh on Facebook, not really been noticed by anyone else, and that's probably because it's on a page, an area which people don't have access to, haven't bothered searching. But this odd individual here and there, they came across it themselves, which is obviously very helpful, very useful and good to see. So it's all about documenting behaviour of key people within the case, their opinions on stuff, what they see, their witness statements, changes in behaviour, their outlook of others outside or inside of the case, things like that, such as Jack and Carter Combs. You'll get an idea today. So I tried searching this morning from my point of view on Facebook of Jack's post, the comment section. I couldn't find it. Has it already been deleted? I don't know. If it was, that makes it even more interesting, right? But I did say last night in the live stream, anyone does come across it, make sure to screenshot, and that's what people did. It's on Reddit now, so we can take a look there. Credit to those that did find it and screenshot it and archive it. It's very important in cases like this. Things can disappear. So with that being said, welcome to those in this live premiere watching as we go along. Share your thoughts, opinions, reactions, live chat box. You want to add any questions, elaborate on any points, talks, feelings, thoughts, list them all down below under this video in the comment section, and I'll try and respond back later. You can also find a pinned comment by me at the top in the comment section if you want to support this channel. Credit to Cleo last night for her super chats, super stickers, helps the channel and in moving forwards with that momentum. So that all being said, let's get straight into the latest news with Jack. So we've arrived on the Noah Presgrove Reddit page, and right at the top, 15 hours ago, it's titled Jack Newton Arguing on Facebook. Only a handful of comments, but we can check them as well. There is the photo, the screenshots, very useful. And it will be recent, this, and the reason why it would be recent is because the video that I did documenting and highlighting Carter Combs' threatening text was so many days ago. And it ties in with the after effect, the responses. And we'll get to that when we get on to the next few slides. So this is just the beginning of some of the conversations. Sarah George, I believe, yes, is the individual that shared their point of view from Instagram at the time. But let's just see what's mentioned first. By Rosa Newton, wonder who was in that passenger seat. Jack Newton says, what? Lol. Now, take in mind, certain text on screen may be spelt or looks different because I believe the person that took this screenshot has it in a different language, such as when it says 1 anno, that means 1 day ago. As for curtir, I don't know what that means. Responder, reply, I guess. So just take that in mind in case you're confused. So the first person to leave a comment, or at least from what we see on screen, Rosa Newton, I guess is the mother to Jack Newton, right? As for the father of Jack, Caleb Newton. Caleb Newton is with Rosa Newton, they're together. But supposedly, and this is what's been talked about in the community, that might not sound good enough. Don't mean to say it's facts, just rumours. Let's just put it like that at least, so there's no misunderstandings with wording. But supposedly there was talk that in the community, when it came to Caleb Newton, he's had an affair in the past, and Rosa Newton said, if you do it again, we're going to split up. So when it came to that party situation of supposed claims that, or alleged claims, whichever word you want to use, that Caleb was at the party and some kind of sexual activity going on, and then keeping that quiet so Rosa never found out about it, you could understand how those discussions and rumours were being linked with one another, right? I mean, will there be proof out there to say that this and that happened? I don't know at this moment in time. But what is the mother of Jack doing here? Wonder who was in that passenger seat. Now, as for Jack Newton, he's got like a title saying author, meaning author. He's the author, the creator of this post from the looks of it. So whenever Jack responds back to people in the comment section thread, he will be classified as the author, the original poster. Just like the equivalent on Reddit, where you've given the title OP, original poster, OP. But that only shows up when it's on your post and you're replying to people on your post. Same applies to Facebook from the looks of it. Now, I wish there was context given here at least, because I don't know when they talk about who was in the passenger seat. Are they talking about the Noah Presgrove case, the party time at the party house back in 2023 when Noah supposedly tipped over the side-by-side? And Rosa is asking who's in the passenger seat then? Is that what she's referring to? Or is this a completely innocent, harmless, irrelevant post about something completely different? And then Sarah George has come on in, speaking to Jack and making references about the Noah Presgrove case and Carter Combs. What way is it? I don't know. If I could check for the full context from my point of view, if I was able to find this on Facebook and show you what the post was, and then scroll down to the comments as we see on screen, there'd probably be more of a full understanding. But I tried searching. I went on Noah Presgrove's Army Facebook page, couldn't see it there. I went on Jack Newton's page, profile, nothing there. The Sofa Sleuthing page, That's private, don't have access to that. So I don't know where else it would have been. Checked Rosa Newton, no post or mentions there. Could it have been deleted since that live stream that I did yesterday? Were people secretly watching in? I really don't know. I mean, anyone watching right now, you can try and search and find this for yourself on Facebook to see if it's still there. I tried looking all over. I couldn't find it. But it was screenshotted at the time and reposted on Reddit, and that's why we're here now, which is obviously very useful and handy. So let's just say, I'm just saying on the basis that if this original post was to do something to do with Noah Presgrove or the side-by-side at the party, and for Rosa Newton supposedly to say, I wonder who was in the passenger seat, with a laughing, crying emoji, that does seem a bit inappropriate and insensitive in a way, because it's not a joke. And as I said, only in that scenario, because I don't know the full context here behind Rosa Newton's comment. I want to make that very clear. But Jack Newton was joking about saying what, as in like, well, actually I don't know what he's referring to there, really. Let's just move on. 5 days ago, Sarah George, you, Jack, was so jealous of Noah because of his good looks and because all the girls liked him. He was getting all the attention from girls at the party, and you and the guys at the party got mad. Don't believe you hurt Noah, but you were jealous of him. Michelle Spires says, they cancelled the fishing trip, you dumb beep. What I would like to know is, why is Michelle with a Batman profile pic responding to Sarah George by saying the fishing trip was cancelled? Where on earth does Sarah George mention anything about a fishing trip? What the hell's that all about? It's kind of irrelevant in this specific conversation. Sarah George is calling out Jack Newton, deemed as jealous, a possible factor or trait as to why they may have got mad and took it out on Noah, and that's what killed Noah. Yes, you can argue and say what Sarah George is saying here is like an opinion, but how it's worded, stating it as a fact, even though there's not enough evidence or none at all to back it up. I'm just being balanced. I'm just putting it all into perspective. No negativity, okay, or at people or viewers. I'm just weighing it up so you get that full perspective, right? But nevertheless, Sarah George doesn't mention anything about a fishing trip. Yes, we've heard about it in the case and the community. Did it happen? Did it not? And yet Michelle says that the trip was cancelled. Do we have proof that the trip was actually cancelled? I wonder. Like word for word from the horse's mouth? And I still don't get why Michelle responds back about the fishing trip towards Sarah when Sarah wasn't even asking about it. What's jealousy of Noah towards Noah? Jealousy that Jack may have and others have anything to do with a bloody fishing trip? There's absolutely no link. It doesn't make any sense at all. Unless for some reason that the comments are mixed up somehow, which I highly doubt, or there was a previous comment and then it was edited or deleted, and then by the time Michelle responded back, the original comment there was no longer present, maybe. But it's a bit of a mess to begin with, right? You could say what Sarah George is doing here is kind of provoking Jack Newton to get a response out of him, a reaction. And that does seem to happen to an extent. Because Jack Newton responds to Sarah saying, I don't even know you, with the typical crying, laughing emoji. At times, the crying, laughing emoji, when used in arguments and debates and misunderstandings and disagreements, it can be done in such a degenerate way. It's very cringeworthy. Jack adds on saying, Noah Presgrove was my best friend and I always was super proud of Noah. I was never jealous. I mean, of course you're going to defend yourself, right? So you could say it's biased, this. It'd be interesting to see what other partygoers and other witnesses around thought of Jack Newton. I mean, to be honest, Caden Pressey did describe Jack in the past as a good individual, a good guy, I think kind of funny in a way. So there wasn't anything negative said about Jack. Caden did say himself he doesn't want to say anything bad about Jack. Is Caden protecting Jack, or is Caden protecting himself more so, and maybe advised to keep quiet? You never know, right? Because yeah, you can defend yourself. You can talk about yourself. You're probably going to bump yourself up in positive points and characteristics about yourself. It's easy to say that you're not jealous, but if other people around you could also back that up as well, in an unbiased individual way, that would be better. But anyway, Sarah George does respond back saying, I don't believe you hurt Noah Presgrove at all. I believe you on that. You did everything you could to find him, which shows you cared about him. I would bet all the guys at the party were jealous of Noah. Noah had a tough life, so there was nothing to be jealous about. Right. Wait, did Noah have a tough life? I don't know. Avery Combs should not have been giving underage kids alcohol. Yeah. Sarah also says, also, Jack, your girlfriend, Carter Combs, said she was going to beat me up and she was very cold about Noah's death. If you want proof that she said she was going to beat me up, let me know. Now, personally, I don't know about Carter Combs being cold about Noah's death, unless that's supposedly in the past when she supposedly said she didn't know who Noah was, but then changed the story later. I'm not sure if that's what Sarah is getting at here. I mean, at least from what I saw of Carter Combs' response, it wasn't like a cold response to Noah. It was just a threatening response to Sarah, right? Was there anything else to highlight here? It's interesting how Sarah George says she believes that Jack Newton didn't hurt Noah, and that Jack Newton did everything he could to try and find and locate Noah. I don't quite understand that personally. In terms of believing that Jack is innocent and didn't lay hands on Noah, okay, fair enough. It's an opinion, but if that's what you think, that's what you think. It is why it is. But in terms of saying about how, oh yeah, you did everything you could to find Noah, what does that mean? I didn't think anyone did anything to try and find Noah. Like, at the end of the day, when Noah supposedly left at 3:30, that was it. Nothing happened until when a person found him. And a person who found him was supposedly Jack early on, but much earlier on compared to when other people heard or passed by, like the truck drivers, like an hour or more later. So there's a certain order to things and how stuff developed and who saw what first. And those that saw it first, why were they there at that time? What were they doing? That does apply to Jack. Sarah Long, Jasmine Milan have talked in different ways, direct, indirect, about supposedly Noah going missing at the party, and then friends searching for him, finding him, and bringing him back to the party house. And that was done once, at least, and that was the night before. I don't know if that means Sunday night or Saturday night, but nevertheless, people were concerned enough to look for Noah. As to who went searching, names were not mentioned. But is that what Sarah George is referring to here? That Sunday or Saturday night when Noah went missing and wandered off, that the likes of Jack and some others went searching and concerned, found him, brought him back to the party, and it was all okay? Okay, maybe there was a level of care and effort there, but we don't know if Jack was involved in searching for Noah, do we? Do we truly know as a fact that Noah did go missing, wandering off at some point at the party, as like Jasmine Milan claims, and even Sarah Long, and Sarah Long wasn't even at the party. So, take that as you will. But even if Jack did somehow or was involved and found Noah the first time around when he was alive, and then fast forward to Monday morning when Noah leaves, or maybe attempts to leave, and then whatever happens, and 3:41 a.m. Monday morning, Jasmine Milan does a Snapchat post, well, guess Noah is missing, something like that. Not much happens after that, really, does it? Not at least from what I remember. I don't remember any search parties or any major concerns or worry. There have been talks about searches taking place with a missing person, but I just don't see how it quite fits in with the case because I've just not seen it backed up with full-on proof. I've heard previous stories of the following, the night beforehand or so when going missing, but that's before. We need to know as to after he's gone for the final time, was anything done or not. So it's interesting that Sarah thinks that Jack did a lot in terms of searching. I didn't think Jack did any searching for Noah. It was treated as, well, nothing suspicious, it is what it is. And then coming across the body and being somewhat shocked by it. Does anyone know? Anyone up to track on that? Jack responds back to Sarah about the girlfriend situation, saying, if Carter Combs said she was going to beat you, you definitely deserved it. Oh. I mean, I can understand that comment. So it's like, if you've been around someone long enough and you know what triggers them and what doesn't and what clearly impacts someone, if you've done something bad enough, that is probably why they've responded back the way they've done. So, because sometimes when you're around people in life, you know their tolerance levels, and some people can have really high tolerance levels and they keep very calm. But the moment they respond back aggressively, it could come across as a bit of a shock or surprise as to strangers. But those that know that individual that said something threatening or aggressive, they will know that, well, that individual only responded back the way they did to that stranger is because they've got a high tolerance level. So what was said in the first place was that bad that it led to their breaking point. So does that apply to Carter Combs? That Carter Combs doesn't get triggered that easily about certain things, but then when it touches a nerve, then she will respond back quite passionately and she means what she says. Does that mean that Jack Newton has ever got on the wrong side of Carter Combs and been beaten up by his girlfriend? If you know that when certain things are said to Carter that she will say she's going to beat you, and she probably will do, that Jack has been on the receiving end of a beating or seen her beat someone else in the past, to know that, to experience, to see it happen. When she says something and she means it, you would have had to have seen it or been on the receiving end to know that it's true by what she says she would do, right? Maybe it's different online because it's not physical, but those that have been physically around a person that says threatening stuff and they follow through with their promises, well, you've witnessed it, so you know what you're talking about. So does that imply that Jack Newton knows what he's talking about? Does that further validate as to why Sarah George should receive such a comment like that? In my opinion, we'll get to Sarah George's comment later to make sense of to why Carter Combs said what she said. But I treat it as a give and take situation. You give some, you receive some. You may say something thought-provoking, you might poke and prod the bear, but you can't complain afterwards if the person then retaliates back. Okay, it is what it is. But what you can say is, people can criticise Sarah George and say, well, she probably shouldn't have said what she said in the first place. But at the same time, if it wasn't for Sarah George's comments, then we wouldn't see Carter Combs and her true behaviour at times. And we wouldn't see this response by Jack Newton. So sometimes, unpopular things can happen, but you get a response out of it, which normally you probably never would get. So you need to acknowledge that at least. And nevertheless, whilst Sarah George could be critiqued on certain points or the delivery of her sentences and previous ones, you can argue and say that Carter Combs, nevertheless, shouldn't have said what she said with her wording, especially because she's involved in this case. The case is open and it's to do with a 19-year-old that was beaten, possibly beaten to death based off the injury sustained. And Carter Combs is saying she's going to beat a person down. Well, it just doesn't sound too good, does it? It's not good timing. It's poor wording. But the thing that stands out to me, and I said at the start of this video, if you remember, about the girlfriend status, when Sarah George says, hey, Jack, your girlfriend said she was going to beat me. And the first thing that Jack responded back with is, if Carter said she was going to, you definitely deserved it. So in a way, Jack isn't saying at this moment whether what Carter has done or said is bad. Jack is just saying that, Jack is basically sticking up for Carter and defending her in a way and reinforcing that she's a true to herself person. Whatever she says, she means. Well, or it could be seen like that. In terms of the "you deserved it," kind of implies that it must have been bad enough in order for Carter to say a thing in response of a certain nature of violence. Hopefully it's making sense, this. It's kind of like on the spot to try and process it all. Jack says, everyone loved Noah. No one was jealous of Noah. Well, that's the thing, Jack. If everybody loved Noah, then everyone shouldn't be deleting any photos, videos, or resetting social media, or more so factory resetting phones then. Regardless of who it is, if everybody at that party loved Noah, then they wouldn't touch anything. If everyone loved Noah, there wouldn't be moving the golf clubs and bits and bobs along the way. So George says, you don't want to hear the comment I made to set her off? Seriously? It will hurt you. And Jack said, then why'd you say it? People like you aren't helping anything at all. Well, whilst you could agree with that to an extent, we could also, respond back to Jack and say, people like you aren't helping either when you keep changing your bloody stories. 1 minute you're asleep at 1 a.m, then 2 a.m, then 3 a.m. But this also happened and that happened at the same time when you were asleep, but you knew it happened, but you were asleep. And then Caden comes in and says you weren't asleep. So what the hell's going on there? And then, at the highway at a certain time, what's that all about? And claiming that Noah passed away 4 a.m. How come Jack didn't elaborate on that? And just leaving it open-ended like a mystery. Stuff like that doesn't help. So when Jack is inconsistent with what he says or states, or things he mentions as a possible fact but never really backs it up or, elaborates, that doesn't help a case. So it's quite hypocritical of Jack Newton to be calling people out in the community when he himself has done things which have caused a bit of confusion at times, right? I think I might be wrong, but maybe the mother of Noah Presgrove or a family member or some related family member who I came across on Facebook recently, but it was an older post calling out Jack saying, I can't believe you lied to me about claiming to be asleep. So people feel betrayed there, even in the background by the likes of Jack, who's supposedly the best friend to Noah. Yeah. I mean, there'll be people out there that will know more about the case and all the switching and changing of information and the contradictions and how Jack was then later, and then now, how it differs. People watching, what do you think? Do you agree with what Jack says? People like you aren't helping anything at all, even though, is he taking the moral high ground, even though he himself has done wrong in the case? Would you agree with that or not? Right? I know people can make mistakes at times and might get the odd bit of information wrong, or when they're trying to recall events because it was such a traumatic time and experience to try and remember it all, and the age you are as well, all kinds of factors you've got to take in mind. But still, when information or wording switches and changes often, it does get messy, gets confusing, develops trust issues and all of that. So yeah. Anything else? Jack Newton, everyone loved Noah, no one was jealous. No one. But are you speaking on behalf of everyone? What do other people have to say? What do other people think? Now, if each person had to defend themselves and say whether they're jealous or not of Noah, everyone would say they're not jealous. If you used to ask everybody in a particular high school, are you a bully? Are you a bully? Everyone would say, no, I'm not a bully, but there could still be bullying that exists within that high school. There are liars amongst the ranks. Whilst, yes, you can do interviews and you can ask people direct questions, at times it's very bloody pointless, because if you want the truth out of them and you ask a certain question that's to do with them and it could paint them in a negative light, most of the time they're not going to accept that, they're not going to acknowledge it, and they're probably going to drift away from answering the truth. So it's a bit pointless. That's why sometimes you've got to rely on third-party people, basically witnesses or friends of friends or strangers that witnessed what another individual can be like at times and what really does go on behind the scenes. And Caden Pressey would be a good example, but Caden can only say so much, and that's what he's done. So, he was a friend with Jack, but it doesn't seem to be the case anymore. But still, Caden hasn't said anything bad about Jack, whether that be because he doesn't want to or he can't. I don't know. You can let me know what you think down below. For Sarah here to say that, Jack, you don't want to hear the comment that I said to her to set her off? Seriously? I mean, I don't know, maybe some people may read that and think, that just sounds childish, but I guess what Sarah is trying to get at here is the importance behind, what was said and how she responded for that context. But do we have a resolve? Sarah says to Jack, I said the comment because it's true, and her threatening to beat me up proves it to be true. We just want justice. I'm sure you do as well, and I've stood up for you. Has Sarah George stood up for Jack elsewhere? I've not seen it myself. Jack says, you can't just run someone down every day and expect not to get retaliation. You really need to do some growing up. And Sarah says, who did I run down every day? You tell me people like me are not helping, but I believe you didn't hurt Noah at all. Now, I don't know if Sarah George is just saying that to Jack to establish some kind of rapport with Jack so they could get more out of them, maybe. But, I mean, Jack is saying from what Sarah has said, and, it's not even mentioned from what Sarah has said to Carter for that original response, but don't worry, we'll get to that in this video because I do have the screenshot of it. I've got the, the context. But for Jack to say to Sarah, you can't just run somebody down every day and expect not to get retaliation. Most people have a breaking point. So if you keep prodding and prodding, they'll eventually bite back or maybe lash out. And it's kind of unfair because that person's trying to keep it together after a traumatic experience, supposedly, maybe to them, and other things going on in life and responsibilities. You keep reminding them of things and saying hurtful stuff that may eventually break down in different ways. They could retaliate, they could just have a breakdown mentally, all kinds of things. And Jack, basically, in a way, is defending Carter Combs, right? By saying, you can't just keep prodding someone. It's not their fault that they say what they said after you said what you said originally, and that, whatever it was that you said, that you deserved it anyway. So Jack agrees that Sarah George deserved to get the shit beaten out of her, or him, because of what was said to Carter. So even though Jack Newton and Carter Combs have broken up, Jack Newton is still referring and talking about her, sticking up for her, defending her. Shows a level of care. And that's important because at least how it's been portrayed online not that long ago, they broke up, they unfriended one another on Facebook, mutually or not, I don't know. But it seemed like, oh, it's the end. Has there been a breakdown in communication? Will one expose the other? Have they parted ways completely? Are they distancing themselves because of the case or much more? Was it done in a calm way or did it end negatively? Well, at least from looking at it here, considering with Sarah George referring to Jack's girlfriend Carter Combs, and the first thing that Jack says was, well, if Carter said she was going to beat you, you deserve it. Not at one point did Jack Newton respond by first saying, well, first of all, Sarah, my girlfriend isn't my girlfriend anymore. We're not together. Do you like how people say that? Like, if someone was to say something about you or group you with somebody else, and then you would respond back with, well, firstly, that doesn't apply to me. Secondly, I'm no longer with them. And thirdly, well, based off my experience in the past, whatever you said to that person, well, you probably deserve it because I've seen them in real life. Something like that, like in a scenario. But Jack doesn't correct Sarah about the girlfriend situation. If Jack and Carter have broken up and Sarah is referring to Jack as having a girlfriend, then Jack should have said, firstly, I don't have a girlfriend, we've broken up. Secondly, though, you probably deserved it with what was said. But Jack didn't acknowledge that. So it kind of implies that with that level of care, defending Carter when Carter isn't present, that Jack may still have feelings for Carter Combs. If not, they're still together. But publicly, it doesn't come across like that. And it could imply that the whole breakup was a complete sham, misdirection. And people have already said it before, but you need that proof. Is this proof? Not strong enough, but it does suggest a different situation. So this is why it's interesting. Whilst we can look at the threatening messages and whilst we can look at Jack and he kind of, says it's welcome with what Carter said. It is where it is. What do you expect? Is that the right attitude to have? I don't know. And I guess with what Sarah, from her perspective, what she's trying to get at here is that, you know, Jack, if you really care about Noah, you truly love him, then you would listen to what I've got to say based off the comment that I said to Carter and how she responded to it, because it all revolved around Noah, the person that you claim to care about. So if you care about him so much, then you would take the time to listen to what I've got to say. But Jack doesn't really, I don't think he does. I mean, I don't know if it's cut off because Sarah says, you know, you don't want to hear what I've got to say. And Jack says, then why did you say it in the first place if it was that hurtful to set her off? Yeah, but Jack hasn't seen the context yet, has he? And I don't think it is shown, because even on the final page, Sarah says, I said the comment because it's true, and threatening to beat me up proves it to be true. And then Jack just says, you can't just expect someone to not retaliate when they keep being prodded at. But still, Jack didn't see the actual response by Carter, or more so the original comment by Sarah. So it's kind of lacking. Take in mind, Sarah George is not a party goer, okay? Just a person online. Where from? I don't know. We don't need to get deep there. But I wouldn't say Jack Newton is defending Noah here in a way, because with what Carter Combs has said, inappropriate to do with the Noah Presgrove case, and whilst there can be some leniency for certain factors such as breaking down, being prodded, thought-provoking comments and this and that, had enough, a bit of a breakdown, who knows, maybe Jack acknowledges and understands Carter's behaviour and actions because he himself, he knows he's not a saint. I don't know, like attitudes around the case and what's allowed, what isn't, what's appropriate, what isn't. And if you got high standards yourself, then you'd probably be more critical of others. If you got lower standards, or you just simply have done wrong yourself in the past or present, then whoever else does, you might be more understanding towards and a bit more lenient. Now, if you got high standards, low standards, but you may be the boyfriend or former boyfriend to a girl, you could still be understanding because of a biased nature. So is Jack Newton being biased about Carter Combs because he still has feelings for her? I wonder. Bit of a mouthful that, but we see it from other reactions. Just check her. Just click there. Unhappy Worldliness says Carter Combs needs to listen to her lawyer and not talk to these people online. She has erased her phone and lied to police about not knowing him. Bizarre behaviour. I've heard that a few times now. So where is the proof, or where is the source which states that Carter Combs erased her phone and the stuff on it, and as well claiming to have not known who Noah was in the past? When was that said? Where was it mentioned? If anyone knows, provide a link or an explanation down below. That would be appreciated, because ever since that FBI situation, I'm a little bit more cautious now when people talk about stuff. This person, Be Kind, Oklahoma criminal defense lawyer, assault, battery, threatening behaviour. Is that to do with breaking the law with certain stuff said? Maybe we take a look at that, but what else is mentioned? Cold Branch. Is Sarah a friend or a random person? If she is the latter, this was all unnecessary to create, invite and try to sustain a desired emotional response. If she is a friend, what does she know in regards to the dynamics of Jack Newton, Carter Combs and Noah Presgrove? Well, from the looks of it, Cold Branch isn't a friend. She's just like a random person online. Was it the right thing to leave those comments as what they did? You can argue and say, no, it could have been unnecessary. But equally, it was unnecessary for Carter Combs to react the way she did. And if she has acted out before in the past, well, we're just seeing it once again. So, right? In different ways. Blonde Alibi. Who's Sarah? What death what the hell? Carter Combs created, is she referencing? Need to know who Sarah is and if she's even relevant. Not sure who Sarah is. And then what's that one? Deleted comment. What death was Carter Combs involved in? Yes, I think that's miscommunication now because it was deleted, so they must have made a mistake. But, you know, a bit of a messy situation. Can we check this link out? Will it let me? Hopefully it doesn't pop up. Arrested for criminal charge, text us here. No, I do not want to text you. Get away. Right. What's this all about? Threatening violence. Is this to do with Oklahoma as well? Oklahoma criminal defense lawyer. Right. Well, I'll just read it anyway. Threatening violence. In cases involving stalking or harassment, there is usually a pattern of repeated acts or several documented incidents. However, communicating a single threat of violence or harm against another person may be enough to result in criminal charges in Oklahoma. So from how it's worded here, it kind of implies that what Carter Combs has said with that single threat of violence or harm against another person could result in a criminal charge. But likely it probably wouldn't happen and she'll probably get away with it, like how other people do. Threatening an act of violence versus assault. The charge of threatening violence should not be confused with assault, which usually involves an actual physical attempt to harm someone. For example, swinging a fist at someone or moving towards them in an aggressive manner could be considered assault. Potential penalties. If you verbally or electronically threaten to perform an act of violence that is intended to cause serious harm, you may be charged with a misdemeanor which could result in up to 6 months in jail. So that could apply to Carter Combs, right? However, if you actually plan or conspire to commit violence intended to cause severe bodily harm, you may be facing a felony charge and up to 10 years in prison. Well, there you go. So it's very useful for that to be provided, and that's from OklahomaCriminalDefenseLawyer.com. So shout out to Be Kind for making that reference, because it kind of applies to Carter Combs, doesn't it? So should she be charged with what she said? Now, what we're looking at on screen is from the point of view of that Sarah individual who reached out onto Instagram with a public comment. The fact that Carter Combs responded back privately says a lot. Now, people can say that what Sarah said originally shouldn't have been said, it's uncalled for and unnecessary, and that's what sparked and provoked Carter Combs' response, which is defended by the likes of Jack Newton. But of course, Jack would defend Carter when they were together in a relationship, at least in the past. There's a level of biasness there. At the end of the day, the fact that Carter Combs said what she said privately and not publicly says a lot. It speaks volume. Is Carter Combs too afraid to say this public because other people will see it themselves, followers and friends? Is it because she knows what she's about to say in text could be considered illegal? You could get in trouble for saying it, threatening messages online, but you think if you do it privately, you can get away with it and it'll be enough to scare that person off and not reach out for help or do anything? It makes you think. I'm going to beat the actual shit out of you. Now, was it a spelling mistake for ducking instead of the F word? Who knows, unless they did that on purpose. But still, to say that you're going to beat the shit out of someone, that's quite violent, that, to intend harm onto someone. And based off that, those Oklahoma laws, or whatever you want to call it, we read out, that would be deemed as like some kind of offence. 6 months, 10 years? Who knows? I mean, no one's perfect, of course, but you know, when you look at supposedly the original comment that I pretty much said from Sarah's point of view, Noah wasn't interested in you and to get over it. Was that enough to warrant this response? No. If Carter just basically said, hey, back off or stop harassing me, you creep, you know, comments like that, it's not threatening, it's not breaking any laws, you're just sharing your own thoughts and you're giving a piece of your mind to them to tell them to stop. That's fine. The moment you start threatening, how you are reacting could be deemed as how they may want you to react. So you're kind of falling for the trap. But still, even if it was a trap or not, we're seeing people's true behaviour. And if this person was confident enough to say it behind closed doors, that I'm going to beat the shit out of you, is that what happened to Noah Presgrove as well? Beaten to death. It just doesn't sit well. If people want to be critical of Stevie Howard, then they should also be critical of Carter Combs and even Colton Newton, saying, I'm coming for you if you try reaching out to Stephanie Millan again. It's just really over-aggressive, confrontational, abrupt responses to certain situations of the case, and it just makes them look like they're digging themselves into a hole, right? That's what the problem is. After reading that, I found it quite interesting, Jack's perspective on the situation. He didn't really seem fazed or bothered by it. Now, me personally, if I was in the dark about the situation of Noah Presgrove as to what happened or who could have been responsible, but then I see that someone who I know of much later on is threatening to beat a person up, I could be thinking, is that exactly appropriate when it's especially to do with our friend, the person that we care about so much? You know, you probably shouldn't be saying that to that other person. But now that I think about it, if that's what you think of that stranger, then, you know, you're going to threaten violence on someone, and I'm thinking of Noah possibly being beaten. Oh, I mean, are you responsible? Not that that's truly the case, but that's at least how I would be thinking, right? But then again, I pick up on things differently to how other people do. So in terms of Jack, you may not see things the same way. You may stand up or support someone in which others wouldn't, but it depends what connections you have to that individual. As for Jack, you know, if Jack ever is the cheerleader to Carter Combs or defending her at times, I mean, it makes sense because girlfriend, boyfriend care about one another, or at least at one point they did, and ever since supposedly not. But then from Jack's point of view, I don't know, kind of sticking up for her. So what does Carter think of that? Carter hasn't responded though, and she probably won't. But the other key thing to take from today is that make sure to screenshot things that you find, whether it's exactly the truth or not, whether it's misinformation, disinformation. If you ever want to quote, give the source, make sure you got the screenshot as to where it first came from and who originally said it to begin with, especially those key individuals within the case, because you never know how long it will remain public for. It might end up vanishing afterwards, and then you'll never see it ever again. And then when other people hear about it, they won't see it themselves. So today, whether that comment thread by Jack is still there or not, if it got deleted, well, it doesn't matter because we saw it today as it was archived elsewhere. Very important. So credit to those on Reddit, credit to those that screenshot and question onwards and talk. It's all good. We'll see what happens next, but thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.